have a massive challenge ahead of us of decarbonizing the system and then eventually removing all the CO2 that we put into the atmosphere. So first we need to get to net zero, and then we got to remove a lot of CO2. We don't see a model where we get to any reasonable objective without using every single tool we have to try to reduce emissions. So if we would try to define the pecking order of the things we're trying to solve with the energy transition, you will say, first I want to decarbonize it, second I want to get rid of fossil fuels. But if the second gets in the battle with the first one, we're in a bad position. Today we need to get down emissions. And carbon capture in many situations is the cheapest way to decarbonize to an already super costly energy transition. We're talking about $1 trillion capex investment per year that is required. So how do we get there faster? It's clear that carbon capture needs to play a role. If we eliminate that tool from the toolkit, it's going to take 30 more years and cost many $1 trillion more.
Carbon capture is always going to be more expensive than not abating CO2 because it's an additional capex expense and OPEX expense. So you really want to only be deploying it where there aren't other options. Cement, it just needs to be deployed for cement. So cement is 9% of the world's CO2 emissions. Half of that, so 4.5% of that, we cannot abate unless we reinvent cement, which will take us decades to do, or we deploy carbon capture now. And steel, we think huge amounts of the steel sector still will need carbon capture because hydrogen is not going to be the most efficient or cost-effective way for them. I would suggest that we absolutely need technology innovation in carbon capture. There aren't that many startups in the space, to be honest, so it's not there's lots of opportunity, but there are interesting companies doing new solvents and new sorbents and new kind of capital design, and that's where we should be looking. Obviously, it's not ideal if we're burning loads more coal and gas and then just saying we're going to add carbon capture to it. Partly because it's really expensive. Our models show that there is not really any sense in doing that. It's so much more expensive than building solar and wind. And it is baseload. Obviously that's important. So reliable 24/7 clean power if it's CCS and coal. But by the time we get to the 2040s, we believe that we're going to find a cheaper 24/7 clean power route through long duration energy storage and renewables. And that's where lots of VC money is going, which is great. So yeah, maybe downplay the CCS and power side, although it will still be needed in some areas. We're building brand new coal plants in India and China today. So let's invest in CCS for them, because they're not going to decommission for 20 years.
You say, well, there's the moral hazard, or we're going to continue to use fossil fuels. It's a perspective. We accept that some funds and some operators want to operate under that world. We are operating more in the world of let's be pragmatic and let's decarbonize the region. That is what we need. We spend a lot of time in geographies like, for example, Latin America, that obviously have a harder time financing new capital. And carbon capture provides a lower cost option to decarbonize existing assets without having to rebuild everything.
The fact oil and gas are involved, I mean, so what? Oil and gas are involved in renewables building too, and in hydrogen building. Oil refineries emit 4% of the world's CO2. We are not going to kick oil ever, maybe. I mean, oil makes the shampoo I use today, and it makes all my makeup, and it makes all the plastics we use. And actually, plastics are a really great, durable material that we don't have a solution to displace. So CCS, again, really important for the fluid catalytic crackers that oil refineries have that make all of our high-end products, and that's not going anywhere.
Removing it from the toolkit and saying it's a bad idea is just a very expensive proposition. And it's a proposition that is going to get us further away from the objective. So in that compromise, we try to be pragmatic and we support the use of carbon capture to do the most important thing that we need to do today, that is to lower the emissions of CO2.